Being part of a brand has upsides and downsides. I'm part of something, but in the end, I'm a supplier, I'm a vendor. And I turned down the deal and left and got down to the elevators, and it was like, oh, crap, what did I just do?
Food Network spent 30 years building some of the most recognizable faces in television. These were not just cooking show hosts. They were household names, people you invited into your kitchen every week, whose voices became part of your daily routine. And then, one by one, they disappeared. Some left quietly when their contracts expired. Some were pushed out when the network changed direction. Some left under circumstances that were anything but quiet. The list of chefs who built Food Network into what it became and then vanished from it is longer than most people realize. And the reasons behind each disappearance are considerably more interesting than the official statements ever managed to say. The chef who was there before the network even knew what it wanted. Sarah Moulton was one of Food Network's very first stars, and the story of why she left tells you almost everything about how the network changed over time. When Food Network launched in 1993, it was built around a very specific idea: serious, educational cooking content hosted by people who actually knew what they were doing. Moulton fit that vision perfectly. She had trained under Julia Child, one of the most respected culinary figures in American history, and she brought that same calm, knowledgeable authority to her own shows, Cooking Live and Sarah's Secrets. She was not performing, she was teaching. For years, that approach worked. Then the network started looking at its ratings and noticing what else was out there. Loud personalities, drama-filled competitions, shows that felt more like reality television than cooking class. The network started shifting its resources toward that direction, and Moulton's style of thoughtful, technique-focused content became less central to what Food Network wanted to be. She left in 2007. The network had essentially moved on from the format she represented before she made any formal exit. What happened next is the part that gets overlooked. Moulton did not disappear. She moved to PBS, where she hosted Sarah's weeknight meals for years, reaching an audience that actually wanted what she had always been offering. She also became a regular voice on Christopher Kimball's Milk Street Radio, answering cooking questions from callers. She kept writing cookbooks, including Sarah Moulton's Home Cooking 101 in 2016. She did not need Food Network. It turned out Food Network needed her more than she needed it. The butter queen whose empire collapsed in 48 hours. Paula Deen was one of Food Network's biggest stars through the early 2000s. Her Southern cooking style, her warm on-camera personality, and her enthusiastic approach to rich, indulgent food built her a fan base that was genuinely devoted. She had multiple shows, a restaurant empire, a line of cookware, and the kind of brand recognition that most television personalities spend entire careers chasing. It all came apart in 2013, and it happened fast. A former employee of a restaurant Deen co-owned filed a lawsuit claiming a deeply problematic work environment, including inappropriate conduct and the use of racial slurs by Deen herself. During a legal deposition connected to the case, Deen admitted to having used racial slurs in the past. Food Network announced it would not renew her contract. Sponsors started dropping her within days. The collapse of her public brand happened in a window of time that was shocking in its speed, even by the standards of celebrity controversies. She settled the lawsuit out of court. She released public apologies. But Food Network was done. What is interesting about what came after is how much she kept going regardless. Her restaurants continued operating. She produced a syndicated show called Positively Paula for 2 years. She appeared on Dancing with the Stars. She launched a podcast, a YouTube channel, a line of pet food, and continued writing cookbooks at a pace that most authors would find impossible. By the time her cookbook count reached 18, total sales had passed 11 million copies. The Food Network chapter closed in the most damaging way possible. Everything else she built around it kept moving. Whether that represents resilience or simply the durability of a brand that had already become too large to fully collapse is a question worth sitting with. the host who got too big for one network to hold. Bobby Flay is one of the most decorated chefs in Food Network history. He ran multiple successful restaurants, won James Beard Awards, and hosted more Food Network shows than almost anyone else who ever appeared on the channel. Iron Chef America, Beat Bobby Flay, Boy Meets Grill, Throwdown with Bobby Flay. His name was woven into the network's identity for close to 3 decades. And then in 2021, he and Food Network parted ways after contract negotiations broke down. Reports indicated Flay had been seeking a significantly larger deal, and the two sides could not reach an agreement. What makes this departure different from most on this list is what it revealed about the economics of Food Network at that particular moment. Flay was arguably the network's most bankable talent. Beat Bobby Flay was still drawing strong ratings. He had leverage. The fact that Food Network let him walk rather than meet his terms suggested either that the gap in their positions was genuinely too large to bridge, or that the network had made a calculation about what stars at his level were worth to them going forward. Flay landed at the Food Network's parent company in a different capacity for a period before launching his own projects independently. He has remained publicly active through his restaurants, his social media presence, and various cooking and media ventures that do not require a network home to sustain his profile. The lesson from his departure might be that Food Network had a ceiling on what it was willing to pay even for the people most central to its identity. And that ceiling eventually became the reason some of its biggest names walked away. The network's first real superstar and why she outgrew it. Emeril Lagasse was the chef who turned Food Network from a niche cable channel into a cultural phenomenon. Before Emeril Live launched in 1997, Food Network was still finding its audience. After it launched, the network had something it had never quite had before: a genuine star who could generate the kind of energy and audience response usually associated with entertainment rather than cooking. His catchphrases became part of American pop culture. His restaurants expanded, his cookware line, his cookbooks, and his broader brand grew into a genuine empire built on the momentum the Food Network platform provided. But by the late 2000s, the relationship had cooled. The network reduced his programming schedule, and Emeril Live ended in 2010 after more than 800 episodes. The circumstances were described publicly as a mutual decision, which is the standard language used when neither side wants to explain what actually happened. Lagasse did not slow down after leaving the network. He continued running his restaurant group, which at various points included more than a dozen locations across multiple cities. He returned to television through other platforms and continued producing content that reached his existing audience. He also remained a presence in the culinary world through appearances, events, and continued cookbook publishing. What his departure illustrated was something that would become a recurring theme in Food Network's history, with its biggest names. The network was extraordinarily good at making stars, and considerably less good at keeping them once those stars had grown large enough to have options beyond what Food Network could offer. Emeril made Food Network, and then Food Network became less essential to Emeril. The gentle British baker who found a bigger audience elsewhere. Paul Hollywood is one of the most recognized baking judges in the world, primarily through his role on The Great British Bake Off, which has aired in the United States under the title The Great British Baking Show. Food Network brought him to American audiences through a show called Paul Hollywood's City Bakes, which ran briefly and did not generate the kind of sustained viewership that would have justified a long-term commitment. The show followed Hollywood as he traveled to different cities and explored local baking traditions. It was well-made and genuinely informative, but it did not connect with American audiences in the way his work on Bake Off had. The format of a travel-based baking exploration was different enough from his judging role that it may not have given viewers what they were expecting from him. Food Network did not continue the show beyond its initial run, and Hollywood returned his full focus to Bake Off, where his presence has remained central to one of the most watched baking programs in television history. His case is interesting because it represents a different kind of Food Network story than most on this list. He did not leave under difficult circumstances or because of a creative dispute. He simply did not translate to the American format in the way the network had hoped. The audience that loved him on Bake Off was not necessarily the same audience that watched Food Network, and the show did not successfully bridge that gap. He went back to doing what he does best in the environment where it works best. That is not a failure. It is just an honest outcome. The queen of healthy cooking, who left when the network went in the opposite direction. Ellie Krieger built her Food Network career on a specific and genuinely useful premise, that food could be healthy and still taste good, and that making better choices in the kitchen did not require giving up the pleasure of eating. Her show, Healthy Appetite with Ellie Krieger, ran for multiple seasons and developed a loyal following among viewers who wanted that exact combination of nutritional awareness and real cooking. The problem was that the network's broader direction was moving away from that message rather than toward it. As Food Network leaned increasingly into indulgent, big personality content and competition formats, a show built around making healthier choices became progressively less central to what the network was presenting as its identity. Krieger's show ended in 2009. She has continued working and publishing since then, including a significant presence in print media and cookbook publishing. Her books have reached audiences who found her through Food Network and followed her after she left. She has also contributed to various food publications and maintained a profile in the nutrition and healthy cooking space that her Food Network years helped establish. Her departure illustrates a specific pattern in the network's history. The chefs whose work was most distinctly educational or focused on a particular health or technique-based approach tended to be the ones who found themselves edged out as the network's priorities shifted toward entertainment value over instruction. The network that launched with Julia Child's educational model eventually built its identity on something quite different, and the hosts who embodied that original model had to find other places to do what they had always done. The classically trained chef who never quite fit the new Food Network mold. Ming Tsai hosted East Meets West on Food Network starting in 1998, bringing a genuine fusion cooking perspective that reflected his background. Classically trained in French cooking with deep roots in Chinese culinary tradition, he won a Daytime Emmy for the show, which tells you something about the level of quality it represented. He also won a James Beard Award, which is about as serious a culinary credential as exists in American food culture. Food Network ran East Meets West for several seasons before the show ended in 2003. Tsai has said in interviews that the network's evolving direction was not a natural fit for the kind of sophisticated, technique-heavy content he was producing. As the network moved toward more accessible and entertainment-driven programming, the space for the kind of serious culinary exploration Tsai represented became narrower. After Food Network, he hosted Simply Ming on PBS for an extended run that demonstrated what a loyal audience his approach could sustain when given the right platform. PBS, with its educational mission and viewer base that actively seeks out substantive content, was in many ways a better structural match for what Tsai was doing than a cable network increasingly organized around competition and spectacle. He also continued running his restaurant Blue Ginger in Massachusetts and remained an active figure in the culinary world through events, charity work, and media appearances. His career after Food Network demonstrated that the audience for serious, technique-focused cooking content was real and sustainable. It just was not the audience Food Network had decided to prioritize. The host who taught a generation to cook and then quietly moved on. Sandra Lee built a significant Food Network career around a concept she called semi-homemade cooking, which involved combining store-bought ingredients with some fresh elements to create meals that looked impressive without requiring professional-level skill. Her show, Semi-Homemade Cooking with Sandra Lee, ran for years and reached an enormous audience of home cooks who found her approach practical and genuinely useful. The show connected with people who were not professional cooks and were not trying to become professional cooks, but who wanted to put good food on their tables without spending hours in the kitchen. That is a large and underserved audience, and Lee reached it effectively for a sustained period. Her relationship with Food Network wound down gradually as her personal circumstances changed significantly. Her long-term relationship with Andrew Cuomo, who served as governor of New York, became a major part of her public profile. And as that relationship became increasingly complicated by political controversy, her media presence shifted accordingly. She has remained active in various capacities since stepping back from regular Food Network programming, including through social media, cookbook publishing, and occasional television appearances. But the consistent weekly presence she had built on Food Network has not been replicated elsewhere in the same sustained way. Her case is a reminder that careers in television cooking are shaped by personal circumstances as much as professional ones, and that the public profile built through a network show can be both an asset and a complication when life outside the kitchen becomes the bigger story. The man who built the network's identity and then left without a word. Mario Batali was one of Food Network's foundational figures. He was there early. He was central to the network's credibility as a serious culinary destination, and his combination of genuine expertise, outsized personality, and range across Italian cooking made him one of the most distinctive presences the network ever had. Molto Mario, his primary Food Network show, ran for years. He also appeared on Iron Chef America as one of the rotating challenger chefs, adding another dimension to his presence on the network. His departure from Food Network and from public life more broadly came in 2017 and was not gradual or ambiguous. Multiple women came forward with accounts of inappropriate behavior spanning years. The accounts were detailed, involved multiple witnesses, and were widely reported. Batali stepped away from his restaurant group, his media properties, and public life almost simultaneously. Food Network removed his content from its platforms. His restaurants faced significant operational challenges in the period that followed. The culinary world, which had held him in high regard for decades, had to process the distance between his professional reputation and what was being described about his conduct. He faced criminal proceedings related to one of the incidents, went through a trial, and was acquitted. Civil matters were resolved separately. He has not returned to mainstream food television in any significant capacity since the initial revelations. His disappearance from Food Network was not a departure in the way that most names on this list represent a departure. It was something more permanent, driven by circumstances entirely of his own making, and it left a gap in the network's history that has simply been left unfilled. The man the network built everything around, and what he said on his way out. Alton Brown spent 20 years at Food Network and built something that no one else on the network quite replicated. Good Eats was not just a cooking show. It was a science and history show that happened to involve food, and it treated its audience as intelligent adults who could handle real information delivered in an entertaining way. It ran for 14 seasons and produced some of the most genuinely educational cooking content ever made for American television. Brown also hosted Iron Chef America for years, serving as the knowledgeable commentator who helped audiences understand what was happening in the competition at a technical level. His combination of food science knowledge and genuine wit made him essential to that format in ways that were visible every time a less capable host tried to fill a similar role on a different show. His contract with Food Network expired in 2020 and was not renewed. He moved to Netflix to be part of the Iron Chef reboot there, and his explanation for why was notably direct. He followed the franchise he loved to the platform that was willing to support it properly. Food Network had spent years resisting the creative evolution that the Iron Chef production team was proposing. Netflix said yes to those proposals immediately. He also produced his own content during the pandemic through his YouTube channel, hosting low-budget shows focused on helping people cook with what they had available during lockdowns. Those shows reached millions of people and demonstrated that his audience was loyal enough to follow him outside any network context entirely. Brown is still working. He is still producing. He is just doing it without needing Food Network's permission anymore, which may be exactly how he wanted it. If Food Network spent 30 years building some of the most talented and knowledgeable cooking personalities in television, and then lost most of them one by one, what does that say about whether the network was ever really in the business of supporting great chefs, or just using them until something more profitable came along? Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel. For more interesting stories like this, be sure to click on the next video that pops up on your screen. You never know what you'll discover next.